There's a cross lying flat on the floor of the London Palladium stage. It's made of metal mesh, and it runs almost the full depth of the playing area. For most of the evening, it's a walkway. People stand on it, argue on it, and cross it without looking down. Then, at the end, it becomes what it always was. I'm Val. This is At the Stage Door from Opera Guide. Jesus Christ Superstar has music by Andrew Lloyd Webber and lyrics by Tim Rice. This is the Regent's Park Open Air Theatre production, first seen there in 2016, restaged for the West End by Michael Harrison for Lloyd Webber Harrison Musicals. It's at the London Palladium until the 5th of September, then at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane from the 16th of October to the 9th of January. I saw it on Saturday the 15th of August, 2026 from seat B20 in the Grand Circle, and I bought the ticket myself. Tim Sheader directs. Tom Deering is musical supervisor and musical director, with orchestrations by Andrew Lloyd Webber and 19 players in the band. Tom Scutt designed the set and costumes, Lee Curran the lighting, Adam Fisher the sound, and Drew McOnie did the choreography. Sam Ryder plays Jesus in his first stage role. Tyrone Huntley plays Judas, Desmonda Cathabel is Mary Magdalene, David Thaxton is Pilate, Bob Harms is Caiaphas, Matty J is Annas, Billy Nevers is Simon, and Phil King is Peter. Herod is a cameo shared across the run between 6 well-known names. Boy George was scheduled for my night, but he withdrew from the whole of that fortnight, and Richard Armitage covered it. It runs 2 hours, including a 20-minute interval. I want to tell you about the evening. I also want to use it to ask something I've been circling for a while because this show is where the question gets sharp. Is Jesus Christ Superstar an opera? Here's why anyone asks. The whole thing is sung. There's no dialogue in it, not one spoken scene, and that puts it in a category called through composed or sung through. It means the music never stops to let people talk. That's the usual test people reach for, and by that test, Superstar passes. The trouble is what else the test does. If sung through is the rule, then the magic flute isn't an opera because it has spoken dialogue. Neither is Carmen. A rule that lets Superstar in throws 2 of the most performed operas in the world out, so I'd be suspicious of it before making it do any work. I'd rather look at the score, open the program, and there's a page headed Musical Numbers. Read the list, and about a third of the entries aren't songs. The Temple, the Arrest, Peter's Denial, the Last Supper, Crucifixion, those are events. That's a scene list wearing a song list's clothes. 4 more entries have a slash in the middle. Simon Zelots, slash, Poor Jerusalem, Trial by Pilate slash 39 lashes. A slash appears where the music doesn't stop and somebody still had to draw a line. And look at the frame. It opens with an overture, which is an orchestral piece before anyone sings. It closes with a number called John 19:41, which is a Bible verse and which has no words in it at all. The last thing that happens is the band alone for a long time. Musicals don't usually end like that. So much for the paper. Here's the room. Desmonda Cathabel sings I Don't Know How to Love Him with a sustained line and an unhurried vibrato. Let me explain both. Legato is when a singer joins the notes rather than separating them, so the phrase arrives as one shape. Vibrato is the small, regular wave in a held note that gives it warmth. That song was written for a pop singer and first recorded by one, with almost no vibrato in it at all, and most Marys since have followed that lead. Cathabel doesn't, or at least that's what I heard, and other people have heard it differently. She sings it. It's a choice, not a default, and it's the moment the score stops sounding like a record and starts sounding like a roll. There's something under that song worth knowing, too. The tune wasn't written for Mary at all. Rice and Lloyd Webber had already used it for an earlier song called Kansas Morning, then bought the rights back and put new words to it. People have pointed out ever since that the melody sits very close to a theme in Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor. So the most pop-sounding number in the show has a 19th century concert hall somewhere in its ancestry. That doesn't prove anything on its own. It does mean the line between the two traditions was already blurred before anyone staged a note of this. Bob Harms sings Caiaphas, and Caiaphas is written low. The bottom of it is a low C sharp, a genuine bass note that nobody can fake. Harms has it, and he lands on it without appearing to reach. The production uses that sound as institutional power rather than as villainy, which matters because Caiaphas isn't a villain in the mustache twirling sense. This Jesus must die is a reasoned argument. He's protecting his people from what Rome will do if this gets out of hand. And the number is chilling precisely because he isn't wrong about the danger. Tyrone Huntley sings Judas, and Judas is the engine of this piece. The show opens with him alone, telling us it's all going to go wrong, and everything after that is his account of it. He carried the house. I found myself thinking, watch for this one, and then remembered that people already have. He originated this part at Regent's Park in 2016, won the Evening Standard Emerging Talent Award for it, and was nominated for an Olivier. So he isn't one to watch. He's the reason they gave him those. David Thaxton is Pilate, and he was in that original Regent's Park company too, in this same role. 10 years on, it shows in how little he has to push. What struck me was that he plays the ambivalence from the very first bar. Pilate's dream comes early, before Pilate has met Jesus at all, and Thaxton sings it as a man who already knows he's been handed something he can't win. By the trial, he has no good options left, only bad ones, and he keeps reaching for the least bad and finding it isn't there. It reminded me of David Bowie, who played the same character in Martin Scorsese's film The Last Temptation of Christ in 1988 in one short scene, as a bureaucrat with a problem rather than a tyrant with a victim. I should say that not everyone has read Thaxton that way. At least one reviewer heard a single register throughout, hostility with no hesitation in it, and argued that flattens a character whose whole function is to waver. That isn't what I heard, and the reason is Pilate's dream. Play that number as hostility, and it makes no sense, because the man in it is frightened. Richard Armitage sang Herod, and he was exactly what he was meant to be, and not a penny more. He arrives in a great gold cloak, works the number as written, lands every laugh where the laugh is built to fall, and puts nothing into it that wasn't already on the page. It's fun, and there is no surprise anywhere in it. Herod is one number, written as a music hall turn, dropped into the middle of a passion, and the production casts it as a rotating cameo, 6 names across 11 weeks. I don't think that's a coincidence. Cast a part 6 times over, and what you're buying is the name on the poster, not a reading of the role. And what you get back is the shape of the number performed accurately by somebody famous. Then there's Sam Ryder. Gethsemane is the number the part is judged on, and it landed like a job done properly. It got a standing ovation, and it's been getting one all summer. I want to be careful about what that tells us. Gethsemane is built to detonate. It climbs and breaks open at the top, and it's engineered to bring a house to its feet, almost regardless of who's standing there singing it. So an ovation tells you the number worked. It doesn't tell you the singer went past it. And a good many people in that room came for Sam Ryder specifically and were never going to sit on their hands. The house was delighted, and they were right to be. I've just seen enough by now to know the difference between a thing done well and a thing that goes somewhere. Something links the other 3, and it took me until the walk home to name it. Huntley, Thaxton, and Harms have the finish you get from years of doing this. Nothing is being worked out in front of you. They know what a phrase is for before they sing it, and they don't spend anything they don't need to. Ryder hasn't got that yet, and he shouldn't have because he's never been in a play before in his life. What he has instead is a big voice and enormous likability. What he hasn't got is the settledness of somebody who has sung a role 200 times and found the floor of it. That's a description of where he is, not a fault. Ask me again in 3 years. He did do one thing I can't stop thinking about. When he had a guitar in his hands, he became a different kind of compelling, I went in not knowing who he was, so I looked him up afterwards, and it explains a great deal. Before any of the fame, he spent years as a guitarist and frontman in hardcore and metalcore bands. Then he started posting covers online during lockdown, became the most followed British artist on the platform, and ended up representing the United Kingdom at Eurovision, where he came second. His album went to number one. His genre doesn't resolve into one thing, and I don't think that's a failing. The through line is a big rock voice and a guitar, and I'd buy a ticket to see that tomorrow. I noticed, though, that his most magnetic moment of the night was the one furthest from anything an opera house does. Hold on to that. Drew McOnie's choreography is worth stopping on because it isn't doing what stage movement usually does in a big house. It's revivalist. The ensemble numbers have the shape and the heat of a tent meeting, the kind where the room converts together and nobody stays in their seat. That's a real reading of the score rather than an imposition on it, because the gospel is already in the writing. Listen to how Superstar itself is built, with a backing chorus answering the soloist, and you can hear where he got it. It also solves a problem the piece has. Superstar is about a crowd that turns, and a revival meeting is the one gathering where you can watch conviction move through a room in real time. Now, the thing I keep turning over, this production sells standing tickets on the stage itself. It's the first time the Palladium has done it in its history. They're £25, when a seat in the house is well over 100, and the pitch is that you'll be inside the story rather than watching it. That's a good idea at a good price, except they were behind the mesh. At floor level, a barrier between them and the action, looking up into scaffolding, and they stood there for the whole show apart from the interval. They weren't the crowd, they were scenery, which is a waste because this piece is about a crowd. The same people sing Hosanna in the first act and call for his death in the second. And the staging has already decided what kind of crowd it wants. If your ensemble is working like a revival meeting, then the people you've put on stage aren't decoration. They're the congregation. Put paying strangers up there and you have the mob already assembled for free. The production didn't use them. And the same production has the best idea of the knight sitting in the middle of its own floor. A walkway out into the audience is a rock concert device. It's how a band gets closer to the back rows. Scutt shaped it as a cross. So the tour catwalk and the instrument of execution are one object, and you don't notice until the last 20 minutes, at which point it's unavoidable. That's a rock and roll gesture doing real dramatic work. The glitter does the same thing, and it's the choice I admire most. There are two colors in this production, and they are not interchangeable. Silver is on Judas's hands. Silver is the money, 30 pieces of it, the price in the story, and the title of a number in the score, and it's the color the man who took it is left holding. Gold is the anointing oil. When Mary anoints him, it's gold that goes onto his skin, and that matters more than it might sound, because the word Christ means the anointed one. It isn't a name, it's a description of something done to him, and here you watch it being done. And then in the second act, they bring out a chest of the same gold. This is the flogging, the 39 lashes, and Pilate counts them aloud because Rice wrote the counting into the lyric. Each time the gold is thrown at him, there's a sharp crack, like a party popper going off. So the material that anointed him is the material that scourges him, and the sound of it is the sound of a celebration. I don't think there is a cleaner statement of what this piece is about anywhere in the evening. The adoration and the destruction are made of the same substance. The crowd that anoints is the crowd that counts. And think about what that substance actually is. Glitter is arena show debris. What falls from the ceiling at the end of a stadium set, the cheapest signifier of being adored by a great many people at once. This production takes it and uses it for the three oldest gestures in the Passion: the anointing, the betrayal, and the scourging. None of it comes off. That's the point. You can wash your hands as much as you like, and there it still is, catching the light. The standing pen is the same borrowed vocabulary doing nothing at all, which brings me back to the question and to the case against me. The band is on a scaffold, visible all night. An opera house hides its orchestra in a pit, partly for the sound and partly so the stage picture stays clean. Everyone here is amplified. Through speaker stacks you can see from your seat. Herod is cast for name recognition rather than for voice and swapped out every fortnight. The program calls it a musical. The company that produces it has the word musicals in its name. None of that is nothing. I could tell you that Rice and Lloyd Webber called it a rock opera themselves, and it's true. It's printed on the box of the original 1970 album, but it doesn't settle anything. Rock opera in 1970 was a record industry phrase. It came out of The Who, and it meant a concept album with a story running through it. It was never a claim about Verdi. Lean on what the writers called it, and I'm citing marketing, and you'd be right not to be persuaded. Here's what I find harder to shake off. When that album came out, the New York Times sent Don Heckman to review it, and he asked whether it earned praise as rock or as opera, and concluded neither. He put it next to Stravinsky and Gershwin, and found the comparison devastating. Heckman was no tweedy defender of the Citadel either. He was a working avant-garde saxophonist who'd studied with John Cage and with Ravi Shankar, reviewing pop music for a newspaper. That's a man standing in both rooms at once, saying it looked thin from either one. 56 years ago, somebody asked my exact question and answered it the other way. I don't think he was right, but I'd be pretending if I told you this was settled. Still, those are facts about a production in 2026 and about a label from 1970. They aren't facts about the score. And the score is sung throughout, built in continuous scenes rather than numbers, framed by an overture and a wordless orchestral close, and written low enough and high enough that it needs real voices to survive. It survived being sung tonight. That's my answer. Superstar is an opera staged by people who mostly don't think it is, and it's the better for their not being reverent about it. If you go, and I'd say go, the 25-pound standing ticket is the cheapest way into the building. Just know you'll be on your feet for 2 hours, and that the view is the one thing you're paying less for. I'm Val. Opera is global, alive, and always worth listening to closely.